Welcome to another episode of the Travis on Sports podcast. As always, I'm your host, Travis Tyler. It's been a crazy week and weekend since last week's show, so we've got a lot to talk about. It's March 16th, 2022. The MLB lockout has ended, so we'll cover the updates and stuff to the collective bargaining agreement and how the season will continue and when it will start and things like that. Since then, the free agent and trade markets have been kind of nuts, so we'll update on you what's happened there so far. Expect more to happen the rest of the way as well. The March Madness bracket was revealed for college basketball on Sunday night, so we'll talk about that a little bit. NFL free agency actually opened today, so we'll talk about that. There's also some more NFL retirements, some quarterbacks that have made some decisions on the future, a few key trades. Some good news for Deshaun Watson. The NHL trade deadline is approaching on Monday, so we'll talk about a couple trades that have happened since last week's show. And then lastly, we'll update you on the current state of the NBA playoff picture. But we begin with great news for the MLB. The league and the Players Association have agreed to a new CBA collective bargaining agreement to end the MLB lockout, which had been going on since the beginning of December and had caused the first 2 weeks of this season to be canceled. As part of the agreement, those games will be made up during the course of the season, and so it will be a full 162-game schedule. The deal passed through the Players Association at a 26-12 vote, which tells you that players want to play, but not everybody was completely on board. On the flip side, the owners had a unanimous 30-0 vote, so all 30 owners were okay with the CBA. The season will start April 7th, and players have started reporting to spring training. And it is a 5-year agreement, and it includes an expanded 12-team playoff format, which is an increase of 1 on each side. There used to be 5 in each league for a total of 10 teams. There are now 12 teams, 6 on each side. The top 2 division winners will get buys. There's an increase in minimum player salary. It rises about $20,000 a year and will reach $780,000 by the end of the collective bargaining agreement in 2026. There's a pre-arbitration bonus pool being established for the top young players. There's the implementation of the universal DH, which we saw kind of tested during the COVID-shortened 2020 season when it was 60 games long. So no more pitchers hitting. The National League and the American League will both have designated hitters. There are new limits on the number of times a player can be set down to the minors, pulled back to 5 per year, and determinations of service time have been changed as well. If a player finishes in the top 2 in Rookie of the Year voting in their respective league, they will receive a full year of service time. There's also a new draft lottery that will determine the top 6 picks in the draft. The one little caveat there is if you're benefiting from the revenue share, you can't have a lottery pick 3 years in a row, which is a pretty good way, I think, to discourage teams from tanking, knowing that they may not be able to get a top 6 player being terrible 3 years in a row. There's also the establishment of a junior competition committee to deal with potential rule changes like pitch clocks, bigger bases, banning the shift, robot umps, that kind of thing. Automated strike zone, I should say. And that will include 4 current players, an umpire, and 6 members that are appointed by Major League Baseball. There also is the possibility of an international draft that would be in July 2022, and that would eliminate draft pick compensation for losing free agents, and the competitive balance would be eliminated. And like I was saying, since the lockout ended, there have been a lot of moves. The first one's not really a player move. The Cubs signed manager David Ross to a contract extension through 2024. The Rangers traded infielder Isaiah Kiner-Falefa and pitcher Ronnie Henriquez to the Twins for catcher Mitch Garver. Garver's a pretty solid catcher, so it's a pretty good move for the Rangers. Kiner-Falefa was later traded to the Yankees for Gary Sanchez. Kind of struggled lately, but burst onto the scene as a big-time power-hitting catcher. See if the change of scenery in Minnesota helps him out. The trade is Sanchez and third baseman Gio Urshela for Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, third baseman Josh Donaldson, and catcher Ben Rortvedt. Also, the Twins have traded pitcher Chase Petty to Cincinnati for pitcher Sonny Gray and Francis Peguero. The Orioles have signed starting pitcher Jordan Lyles. Should help. I mean, the Orioles rotation isn't great, so any help there is good. The Mets have traded for Oakland A's pitcher Chris Bassett. They gave up pitchers JT Ginn and Adam Oller for that. There are rumors circulating around all the Oakland pitchers. It seems like the A's are going into a rebuild. There's another bigger trade that we're going to get to in a minute that they made that also signifies a rebuild, and other trades that are coming down the pipe. Clayton Kershaw signs back with the Dodgers for a year. The White Sox have signed relief pitcher Joe Kelly and pitcher Vince Velasquez. Adam Ottavino goes from the Yankees to the Mets. That was a free agent move, not a trade. Andrelton Simmons, the shortstop from the Angels, has signed with the Cubs. The Braves have landed A's first baseman Matt Olson for center fielder Christian Pache, catcher Shea Langeliers, pitcher Ryan Cusick, and pitcher Joey Estes. After the trade was made, Olson signed a 8-year contract extension with the Braves. It signals the end of Freddie Freeman in Atlanta. We'll see where he ends up signing, because there are a lot of teams that could use his services as one of the top power hitting first basemen in the MLB. The March Madness bracket was revealed for college basketball's NCAA tournament on Sunday night. The first four started last night when Texas Southern beat Texas A&M Corpus Christi and advanced to play Kansas in the Midwest bracket. And then Indiana defeated Wyoming. Earlier tonight, Wright State beat Bryant to move on as a 16 seed into the first round. And Notre Dame beat Rutgers in multiple overtimes in a crazy game. Leads changed a bunch of times in the last couple minutes, and there were a couple big-time shot misses, big-time shot makes near the end, and it basically just ended up being, who had the ball and was able to make the last bucket. The round of 64 begins tomorrow at 12:15 Eastern. Well, it's also known as the first round. Michigan, the 11th seed, will take on Colorado State. As far as the brackets go, you can find the game schedules on any of the sports sites that you follow, but I'm just going to go into the brackets here. Gonzaga is the 1 seed in the West with Duke as the number 2. The Bulldogs will open with Georgia State and play the winner of number 8 Boise or number 9 Memphis. The way Memphis has been playing, I would lean towards Memphis in that one, but Boise State's not a bad team. Duke plays Cal State Fullerton. And if they move on from that, they will play the winner of Michigan State and Davidson, possibly setting up an intriguing matchup of coaching legends between Coach K and Coach Tom Izzo in the second round. I think Duke probably wins that one if it happens, but as a State fan, it would kind of be fun to see my team and Coach K's run there. Texas Tech is the 3 seed in that bracket, and also a team to watch, especially the way they came on as the season progressed. Middle seeds like Arkansas, Alabama, and Uconn actually have some pretty tough matchups. I kind of like Rutgers matching up with Alabama more than I like Notre Dame, but Rutgers lost, so that's kind of a moot point. Vermont scores a lot, so there's a chance they can keep up with Arkansas. New Mexico State has probably better talent than most 12 seeds usually do, so UConn could have a bit of a test in the first round as well. The East region, the top seed is Baylor, second seed is Kentucky. Baylor plays Norfolk State, and then either North Carolina or Marquette. If the Bears move on, the Wildcats get St. Peter's, and if they move on, either Murray State or San Francisco. Murray State versus Kentucky matchup would be kind of fun because it's a little underrated in-state rivalry. I mean, some will say that both teams need to be winning games for it to be a rivalry, so on that kind of thing, it's not really a rivalry. But Murray State's going to give it their best shot and want to take down the big boys from the same state while they're the small school in Kentucky, and show that they're a legitimate program too, because they've made quite a few trips to the tournament recently. And you can imagine they would be riled up and ready to go against the Wildcats if that matchup were to happen. Purdue is the 3 seed. It's also a threatening team in that bracket and in that region. And then the other round of 64 games in that bracket are St. Mary's against Indiana, Texas versus Virginia Tech, and UCLA against Akron. In the South, Arizona gets the 1 seed and will face Wright State after the Raiders beat Bryant. The winner of that will face the winner of Seton Hall and TCU. The 2 and 3s are Villanova and Tennessee in that bracket. Intriguing matchup in the first round of 64. Loyola Chicago as a 10 seed against the 7 seed Ohio State. Loyola Chicago didn't win the Missouri Valley Conference regular season title, but won the conference tournament, looked impressive in the conference tournament, was impressive in its non-conference schedule against some pretty good teams, pretty big conference teams, especially in the Battle for Atlantis tournament. And they've played against Big Ten caliber teams. Ohio State kind of been reeling, losing quite a few games recently. Slid from, I think they were projected at a 5 a couple weeks ago and all the way down to a 7. So that should be at least a good game. I did pick Loyola to win that in my brackets, but it's a tough draw for Ohio State in the first round. Also in that region, there's the Colorado State-Michigan matchup that kicks things off. Illinois against Chattanooga and Houston against UAB. In the last region, we have the Midwest. Kansas is the number 1. They will play Texas Southern, who, as I said before, defeated Texas A&M Corpus Christi. The winner will play either number 8 seed San Diego State or number 9 seed Creighton. Auburn is the 2 and Wisconsin is the 3 in that bracket, and there's some challenging 4 and 5 seeds. Providence has its highest seeding ever in the tournament as a 4, and if they can get by a pretty solid South Dakota State team as a 13 seed, they may be able to make a run late. And Iowa is one of the hottest teams in the country, won the Big Ten tournament, playing great basketball right now, and could make things challenging as a 5 seed and be a 5 seed that makes a deep run in the March tournament. The rest of the bracket, Iowa State against LSU, is the 6-11 matchup. 7 seed USC, 10 seed Miami. Some notable teams that missed the field. Dayton, they even admitted on the selection show that Dayton was in the field until Richmond upset Davidson in the A10 championship, and so Richmond had to take that spot. SMU just barely missing. Texas A&M, after a run in the SEC tournament, didn't make it. Wake Forest, who we thought was going to make it at this point last week, and then dropped a bad one to Boston College, I believe it was, in their conference tournament, ended up not making it. Storylines, potential upsets, and all that stuff. I'm going to be interested to see how LSU responds. They got a 6 seed. They kind of faded a little bit down the stretch, and now they have fired head coach Will Wade right before the tournament. Coaching changes, especially with the short turnaround, always leave a team kind of in a prime situation to get upset by an inferior opponent. And they're playing an Iowa State team that started the season really well and played much of the season as much better than an 11 seed. So they may not make it out of the first weekend that way. Potential upsets. I'm not saying I see these teams winning. I'm just saying these are teams that could give the better seed battle in the first round. Like I said, Loyola is the 10 seed against 7 seed Ohio State. Miami is the 10 against 7 seed USC. Basically all the 7 and 10 matchups. Davidson could even give Michigan State a run. As I said, Iowa State could give LSU a run. South Dakota State against Providence. Chattanooga over Illinois has been a popular possibility. Not that people are picking it, but a popular possibility from some experts. I don't see it. I think Illinois is the better team by far, but you never know. It's March. UAB against Houston. I think the Blazers are athletic enough to keep up. Like I alluded to earlier, I thought Bama could have some trouble with either Notre Dame or Rutgers, and they will be playing Notre Dame. I see that as less of a threat now, but I think Rutgers, when they are on, probably could have given Alabama a pretty good run. I still think Notre Dame has a decent shot, especially since Alabama, especially in recent weeks, has choked a few times when they should be running away with games. Vermont against Arkansas. It's only because Vermont scores a ridiculous amount of points and plays pretty good defense, so there may be a little bit of an adjustment period and a little bit of a shock from Arkansas at the beginning of the game. New Mexico State against Uconn. I think I've covered that a little bit before. New Mexico State's experienced, they're athletic, and they can score points. A lot of times when upsets happen, it's because the team got hot and started knocking down a billion shots. In terms of some teams that are lower than a 1 or 2 seed that could make some noise, Memphis has been playing a lot better since Amani Bates went out with his injury or whatever the heck's going on there. Michigan State, inconsistent this year, big losing streak. At times they look like one of the top 10 teams, but at times they've looked like a really bad team. And in March, you can never count out a Tom Izzo coached team, no matter how bleak it may seem. Iowa, like I said, they're red hot. One of those teams that scores a lot of points. They can shoot the 3 ball. They can kill you with the 3 ball. Keegan Murray can